Really happy to be here, happy to see you all. And yeah, we're going to talk inclusion, which is a big word, and I can already feel some people like, no, we don't want to talk about that. It's got lots of implications. We're going to go over a few fun things today, I hope. So what we're going to talk about today, what we're not going to talk about today, we're going to look at the landscape of the social and cultural world that we're working in, and particularly around wokeness. We love wokeness. This is a term that is bandied around a fair bit, particularly in English-speaking spaces, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the value of inclusive practices for people, both within our markets and for our studios. We're going to do a little bit of sort of audience participation, just a tiny bit, I promise. It's not going to be scary, I promise. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at Sumo Group to encourage inclusive practices across our studios. And then we're going to have a little Q&A, I hope. So prepare some questions. I'm very much looking forward to conversations because some of this stuff is UK-based and sort of English-speaking spaces, and I would love to hear more about Polish contexts. I think these are really intersecting conversations that we have, as we have a very Western-focused industry, but we're all very unique in terms of what we create, so I want to have some dialogue around that. What this isn't, though, is an in-depth inclusion training session. I'm not going to be talking about demographics, how to work with folks. I'm not going to be talking about how we do these. We're doing very, wider, smaller, what you can do at your studios. And I promise you, it is a lot less scary than many things make it out to be. So I'm going to start us off with a really, this is what I want to take away today. So we're introducing inclusive practices by centering the value of difference into your data professional skill set, which will be one of the most important things you can do for your career, your team, and the future of this industry as a whole. That's a big statement, but this is what we're going to be working with overall as we move forward. So about me. There's my face. Hello, I'm Leon Hijazi Killin. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the head of inclusion and belonging at Sumo Group. I have 15 plus years of experience working in employee advocacy, change management, strategic leadership, and critical thinking, with this focus on inclusivity as a specialization. Previously, I worked in higher education, charity and non-profit organizations, and games retail, and I have a background in social activism, take that as you will. I also have an academic background in deconstructionist theory, media and digital cultures, and literary studies. So I have a fairly multidisciplinary approach to what I do, how I approach games, how I approach working spaces, and hopefully that will come out as we talk. So we're going to have a little content warning because some of the stuff we're talking about as we're talking about wokeness is going to touch on Gamergate, or digital fascism as it currently is, sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, lots of fun stuff, developer harassment, and misinformation propaganda. So we're going to be talking about some of these things briefly and also in context, but we have to talk about them because they strongly inform a lot of this work. So in case you're not aware, lucky you, there's been some brouhaha. There's been some talk of wokeness, there's been some harassment, there's been some generally poor behavior, partly from, I would say, our consumer base, but it's not just about our consumer base. There are folks within our industries who are a little mean, to say the least, and I'm sure we've seen things like this. The game is woke, it's trash, it sucks, it's all these various lovely comments about the things we work on being reduced to woke trash. Questions like, is this game woke on Steam? Invested in buying, can anyone playing tell me if this game is being influenced by the woke leftist agenda so I know if I can play it or not? Between Dead Space woke bathrooms, Hogwarts Legacy's woke genders, Resident Evil 4's woke soundtrack, if anyone knows what the woke soundtrack is, I want to know. I have no idea what this means. I'm starting to doubt if I'll be able to play any new games this year. This is one. And then also what we see on particularly X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, where we are seeing harassment campaigns of developers, not just community managers, but anyone who's sort of being seen to be part of a woke agenda being attacked. So, groups that are en masse targeting people, finding excuses, looking for individuals to, while at the same time saying, don't harass these people, is inciting brands of harassment. I hope no one in here has had this sort of storm on them. I hope you've had no one in your studios who've had these storms on them. But I sadly suspect that some of you, if you've not directly had them at your studios, have friends who've experienced it or friends of friends who've experienced it, and it is horrible. And then we also have, you've already seen that new Assassin's Creed is coming out. Already the responses to this are, it's woke, it's going to be trash, it's awful, it's anachronistic, we don't like it. If you don't have any kind of context for what this is about, again, lucky you, but what we're talking about, in effect, is a resurgence of Gamergate. Gamergate 2014, coming back as a zombified creature to be furious, but at the same time, we have to bear in mind, this is not a new thing, this is not something that has appeared suddenly from nowhere, it's been around for a little while. You can go into a couple of the sort of details if you want, we're not going to go into too many aspects of this, but it's also important to remember that this is not a game-specific matter anymore. Gamergate in 2014 perhaps was the inception of what we would consider now digital fascism, but it's not a games-specific issue anymore. We're seeing this in wider media, so if these are just some horrible comments that Ben Hart, who worked on Star Wars Acolyte's social media, had to encounter. I'll let you read these for yourself, because I don't really want to read them out, but they're really horrible type things that are being said. And regardless of what your politics are, these are comments about people, groups of people, individuals, folks like you and me. It's also within books, people who are claiming the books are woke. We're looking at, of course, film, TV, what is woke in these sort of spaces, but also politics. Someone who's not white, not a man, not straight, being held as woke for the person that you exist as. So again, we are talking in a very wide sort of things. And of course, Mr. Elon Musk, is he amongst us? I don't see him, so I think we can talk about him. But this sort of DEI, so that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, must die, which is lovely. Love this. So, again, this is not just within our digital or entertainment spaces. In the UK, this is a whole culture war. Our newspapers love this. We have been seeing this for several years, this culture war being stoked up. Again, woke politics, putting women at risk. Harry, the royal Prince Harry, he is effing woke. The Brits say no to woke. The woke. I'm so tired. So some things I've heard said about inclusion initiatives and about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, that we force woke content into games, that we decrease the overall quality of games content, that we introduce diversity quotas into games, we censor games content, and we take out all the fun. And by doing the above, we funnel tons of money to studios from secret DEI organizations. So I'm going to correct my introduction. Hello, I am Leon Hijazi Killin. I'm the head of wokeness and pronouns at Sigma Group. I'm the woke police. No fun allowed. All sexiness is banned. No sexiness. We don't want attraction here. We do not want things that we like to look at. Denied. I'm here to ruin your favorite game specifically. What's your favorite game? You don't know? Who? Shout a favorite game.
Dark Souls.
Dark Souls. I'm here to ruin it. Any more games for me to ruin?
This Stranding.
Gonna ruin it. What else? I'm so glad you said that, because that was going to be my joke. But see, we planned that. And I'm going to tell you that you're an awful person. Who would like me to tell them they're an awful person? I'm not going to do that. You're an awful person. That was only because there was a hand up. I wasn't picking someone randomly. And I have so much money from secret DEI organizations. So much. I am so rich. Anyway. But what do we mean by woke? What do they mean by woke? I don't want to spend time on this. I really don't, because I think it's stupid. It's a waste of my time during the day. It's a waste of most people's time during the day. But this word will not go away. And so, like Ben Affleck, I have to talk about it. No, really, what do they mean by woke? So, generally speaking, there is no set definition. If you go on any discussion where someone is saying, it's woke, invariably you'll say someone say, what does that mean? And different definitions will come up. Different responses will come up. There is no set definition. But tacitly, it is an accusation that's inserting genders, sexuality, and or races into contexts where they would not exist. So there are many contexts where you can't really talk to people about this of like, oh, it's historically inaccurate. Is it though, or do you not know history? Or whose history is being told when we look at these kind of contexts, when we say, black people should not be in Japan, a la the Assassin's Creed. But these people are not interested in actual histories, they're not interested in details, they're interested in the fantasy that they've come up with or that they've been taught through what we learn. And history is always taught by the victor. Again, the other sort of accusation that it's removing anything sexy or provocative and making games more politically correct. And again, there's like this giving money to DEI consultants and or inclusion initiative that takes money away from development teams, resulting in lower quality products of games. Now, if any of you deal with budgets, I can guarantee you probably know that's also not how these things work. We don't tend to remove someone from one team so then another team gets it. That's not generally how budgets and money works. But most folks who are angry online don't care about this. And by and large, they don't care about reason. So it's talking about wokeness. I don't enjoy it because it's a fruitless argument. But also, money from secret DEI organizations? Where are they? I want to meet them. I would like more money, please. They don't exist. This is a fallacy. These don't exist. By and large, if you have someone who is working on inclusion in-house in studio, we have very small budgets, we tend to be very small teams. Sometimes it's actually very rare to find someone in a role that I have in studios. It tends to be piecemeal between different folks who care about these things. So fear of the walking woke, these aren't new fears. If we kind of look at what the complaints come up, what sort of complaints arise when we talk about wokeness or when wokeness is provoked? What are we really talking about? It's a dislike of difference. It's a fear of missing out or having something taken away, even if that's not true. And it's anxiety around the idea of being replaced. So if you read some of the swath of lovely comments, it's not lovely, the horrible comments that were left around Star Wars: The Acolyte, you may have read, there was one quote which says, "They destroy what men build. It's a nightmare for devs just trying to make good games. And the end," and Elon Musk claiming, "it's supposed to be an end of discrimination, not replace it for a new one." So we see these fears coming up again, and we see these in other areas of life. Accusations of wokeness or anti-wokeness are not new. It's a form of xenophobia in a different form and with a different title on it with it. It's a reskin. It's a reskin. I don't want it in my microtransactions. Oops. So, top-selling games in the US in 2023 with an asterisk because actually finding out top-selling games that don't include digital sales, etc., is very difficult. So, generally speaking, top 20 games in the US in 2023. Let's look at actually what was popular last year. So we had one open-ended sandbox, one racer, 6 action RPGs, 2 fighting games, 3 sports games, 2 first-person shooters, 1 platformer, 3 action-adventure games, 1 survival horror. That's quite an eclectic mix of games, like different genres, and that's even before we dig into each mechanic genre and into what the storytelling, what the content, what the mood is, what the sort of vibe is of the game. Because I might not want to play Starfield, but I might want to play Elden Ring, or I might not want to play Spider-Man, but I might want to play Zelda, within those kind of genres. And this is not including the vast number of games that we have on Steam in terms of popularity and what people can play. What we're trying to say is that there's a lot out in the market right now, not just in terms of what is popular in terms of diversity in genre, but there's just a lot of choice for our consumers. So when we have people, consumers, going online being angry and saying, "There's nothing for me anymore, there's nothing for me," I think of it a bit like someone walking into a library and saying, "Why isn't every book one I like? Why isn't every book fiction? Why are the dictionaries mixed up with my fiction? Why are they historic? Why? Because it's a library. It should provide things for everyone. You're not going to like everything that you read, even if you have a favorite genre. If you love fantasy, you'll read one book and heavily dislike another. You'll like one author, you might not like everything they write. That's what we do in games. This idea that there is a lack of options is just not true. And what we also kind of tend to hear is like, if you go woke, you go broke. What does that mean? Tacitly, for a lot of these people, it means if you focus on inclusion in some shape or form, you will lose money. Let's dig into that a bit, because whose money? Whose money are you losing by this logic? Because it's not just about, are you losing money? Are you losing money? Question mark. We're going to dig into that a little bit. But whose money? Ipsos Women Played, Women Paid, Women Made report shows that in Europe, the overall gender split of gamers in 2020 was about half. Since 2020, and we know some things happened in 2020, 2021, 2022, but since then, we also know that the number of people who play games continues to go up. There continues to be introduction to games, there continues to be people who are interested in digital entertainment. But not only that, like, as far as who pays, who is giving us money? Who is funneling money into our industry? Well, it's certainly not that women are a small chunk of change within the market. And there is an assumption generally that when things are going woke, it's taking things away from a certain player. Again, these things don't exist in the ways that people describe them as. And this is based on sort of European game track markets. So we can see that if you took away the revenue that women gamers put in, I think we'd notice it. I think that'd be a significant thing we would see and probably start to sweat quite heavily about. But not only that, women play across all platforms. We can see that by and large, men statistically play more on all gaming platforms, consoles, computers, etc. But the difference is actually relatively minimal. About 10% in some places, less than 10% in places of computers, and in smartphones and tablets, actually, women overtake the number of men who use these platforms. And again, this was 2020. We're 4 years on from now. These change. These will almost certainly have changed because we see more women building PCs, we see more women playing with PCs, we see more console sales. This is a significant area of our market. And then also, if we look at time spent gaming, again, the amount of time spent gaming between men and women is relatively little. 2 hours in most places, and the same if you look at smartphones and tablets. This is a big market, a big chunk of our market. And if we look beyond women to sort of other underrepresented demographics, 1 in 5 gamers identifies as LGBTQ+. And we've seen a 70% increase in LGBT gamers since 2020. This was a report by Gladden that was released just earlier this year. But also in terms of that population's money, they spend the same, if not more, each month than their straight counterparts. And there are other studies that show that actually marginalized folks invest more into franchises that they love than their straight counterparts. They're more likely to get the special edition. They're more likely to get the special console. They're more likely to tell their friends. They're more likely to get the peripheral stuff because they invest in what they care about a lot, comparatively more than their straight counterparts. But also the thing that was found, which is interesting when we think about the amount of vitriol from anti-woke people, is that GLAD found that the majority of non-LGBTQ+ gamers are not dissuaded by representation, and LGBT gamers are more likely to play games with representation. So the rage that we see around, go woke, go broke, I don't want to see this stuff in my games, there's nothing left for me to play, is a small vocal minority. Studies find this is not the case for most gamers. They just play. They just play. And again, if we look at the types of games that LGBTQ+ people play, they are a significant chunk of folks who enjoy open world and role-playing games, as well as the more niche things like simulation games, music and dance rhythm games, and MMOs. So why does this matter within this sort of corner of the market? Well, again, if we remember what the top-selling games of 2023 were, 6 out of these, which was the largest chunk, were action RPGs. So within that sales market, a significant chunk will be LGBT+ people. And they'll play because they enjoy it. They'll play more if they can see themselves in it. And you're gaining loyal customers through that. And you're losing customers who don't want to play, but that's okay, because that will replenish in other areas if you're aware of them. And the other thing about this is that, this companies that go woke, go broke, it's not true. companies that get woke are not going broke. They are successful. We're seeing this in multiple studies, that actually the more you invest in your inclusion aspects of your companies, the more profitable you'll be. And there are tons of studies about this. I'll go into a little bit more about this in a bit. There's this sentiment that you'll lose money. We saw with the Barbie movie, that's not true. This sort of crying out that you're losing money. It's not true. Some of the biggest movies of last year, in some way, were considered woke. And actually, I've got a question for you quickly. How many of these games do you think were considered woke? Oh, next one. Come on now. How many of these games do you think were considered woke by the gamers?
All of them except Elden Ring.
All of them, including Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Yes? Yeah, you Google any of these and woke, you will find at least a few people claiming every single one of these games is woke. So you can't win. Everything. Minecraft is woke. We're in a place where also there are so many competing factors and variables about why games are successful and not, that it is impossible to prove either way. I find this a fascinating little exchange. Back in 2022, this lives rent-free in my head, not just because I am playing Days Gone a lot right now. I need to talk about this game. If someone wants to ask me in the Q&A instead of this stuff, I would really like that. But otherwise, please talk to me afterwards. But this framing that, Days Gone failed, quote unquote, because it had reviewers who could be bothered to play the games, and it had woke reviewers who couldn't handle a gruff white biker looking at his date's ass above the sort of tech issues and bugs and streaming and frame rates. Again, I genuinely love this game. As a woke, I love this game. So I find this fascinating because there's no way to prove or disprove, because there are fantastic games that enter the market that are not quote unquote successful. And how do we mark success within games? It is something different to the consumer base versus what we will hear from our studios and publishers about what is a successful game. And you can blame success and failure on anything. It's very, very easy to say, oh, you included black people, that's why it failed. Oh, it was because he was a white gruff man who looked at his girlfriend's butt, that's why it failed. It doesn't make sense. It fails in both areas. It's nonsensical. Because the reality is that our audiences are becoming increasingly diverse, and they expect content that reflects the world around them. We are entering a space where access to technology is much, much more readily available, and that the barrier of entry to digital entertainment is continuing to get lower and lower. If you think about, most people have mobile phones. And because most people have mobile phones, they can play games. That's why we have a mobile game market. If you can't afford a console, you can afford a mobile phone. Sometimes. Parentheses. But it's also bearing in mind that when these people talk about wokeness and they complain about wokeness, our biggest market is Asia. They are the largest number of gamers globally, bar none. Don't have stats about that. And a lot of this sort of fear of missing out, this fear of being replaced, the fear that one won't see what we used to see in games anymore, the market changes, we change. Time changes. What we want out of games is different, what we want out of entertainment changes, because otherwise, if we want to go back to what games were, let's go back to Pong, because you cannot get more unchanged than this. You can't diversify two white sticks. But that's not what they mean. They obviously don't mean this. They want something beyond Pong, but they don't want it to go beyond changing what they've already seen. The idea is that we've progressed so far and then we stop. Change must not happen anymore. We've had enough change. Okay. This is enough about wokeness. Because wokeness and inclusion are not the same thing, at least not in my opinion. So what are they? So what is inclusion work if it is not just being woke? And what does inclusive practice in game studios look like? Well, to me, certainly, and this is a field that is eclectic, different depending on your studio, different depending on your project, different depending on your specific needs, different depending on your geographic location. But for me personally, it is about critical thinking skills. It's about strategic empathy. It's about fairness, accessibility, and risk assessment. So let's dig into a little bit what some of these things mean. So critical thinking skills, what we're talking about is observation. So the ability to monitor and notice something or someone to identify opportunities, problems, and solutions. You'll do this as you develop your games. Like, you'll have critical thinking skills to some extent. Within the space of inclusion and belonging, it might be in relation to watching how teams interact with each other, see what's happening between them, if there's a sort of personality breakdown, if there is a place where someone is struggling, and looking for opportunities to problem solve and find solutions. It's about analysis, so gathering and understanding data and information that make up the elements or structure of something. So if we're looking at the market, it's about lots of data research. What is selling? To whom? What do they want more of? What are they asking for? What was a good idea but hasn't done so well? And how can we improve? It's about really kind of digging into information, processing it, and understanding what its skeleton looks like. It's about inference, so drawing conclusions based on that data gathering and the information process, your personal knowledge and expertise and experience. So if we're observing, we're analyzing, and then we're drawing conclusions. And then we're communicating that, so we're sharing and receiving the information with others about those conclusions, so we're not just keeping it to ourselves. It's hey, I've noticed this team is really struggling in this area. I've talked to some of them. Some of them have raised these things, they've looked at this policy, they've looked at that thing, and they're struggling in these areas. Based on some of this, I've observed this thing. My suggestion is we might want to look at this. What do you think? So it's not just about, each part of this works in tandem with the other. It can't just exist in a vacuum. And then it's about problem solving, so using the previous steps to apply to the outstanding problem. Strategic empathy is about stepping into the minds of others to understand their interests, motivations, needs, constraints, blocks, goals, dreams, and more. So again, it's that sort of understanding, why is someone getting blocked? Why is someone storming ahead and others being left behind? Why is someone demotivated while someone else is? Or why is the whole team demotivated? And understanding that life exists outside the studio and that people have pre-existing experiences, pressures, and barriers that impact them before they arrive at work. So someone may have had a relative who's died. They may have a religious event that's coming up. There may be any number of things that is impacting them before they step into the studio, because ideally there is life beyond our studios. It's about fairness. We all know when something isn't fair, and we feel it very deeply. We're not immune to this. We're not, we notice these things. We are as a sort of a human race, we're sensitive to things that don't feel fair. We know it's not fair, but we want it to be. We want to see that there is equity. We want to see that if we're doing the same as someone else, that we are given the credit that someone else gets. We want to make sure that if we are putting in as much work as somebody else, that we are appreciated in the same way. It's not a difficult concept. We know when things aren't fair and when we want them to be fair. It's about accessibility. So does anyone have like a peanut allergy or a seafood allergy or something? Food-based allergy of any kind, you don't have to tell me. But accessibility is not just about the content of our games. It would be like saying, well, all of our food now is going to be cooked in peanut oil on site. Enjoy. And someone would say, hey, ideally, they'd say, hey, that's I've got a peanut allergy. And if someone turned around and said, well, that's tough, because we're using peanut oil because it's cheaper. That's not very accessible. You then have to make your own food. You can't eat anything on site that's been prepared by cafeterias. Or you just don't get to sit with people if you're that, it might be so extreme that if there was a spillage, it might impact you. So therefore you have to be, it's inaccessible. And that's before we even look at games content. Risk assessment within this area is about using those critical thinking skills, strategic empathy, awareness of fairness and accessibility to assess a situation or context for potential personal, commercial, and reputational risks. So I don't sit around going, no more tits, please. I'm looking at what's going to go into our games. I'm looking at what's going to go into our sort of people spaces and saying, hey, this is a thing we might want to consider. This might impact us reputationally, positively or negatively. And you might want to consider it. And it's about proactively creating strategies to mitigate against negative impacts or manage shockwaves when these things do happen, because they will happen. Like, there's no way to protect entirely against this stuff. It's about preparing when they do hit, how you look after your people. So, inclusive practices and centering the value of difference. What does it mean? Because, we get it. We don't get it. You've not said it, Leon. So, audience participation time. But with each other, not with me, don't worry. So, look at the person who's closest to you. They can be behind you, they can be in front of you, they can be side to side. Easy question. Are they the same person as you? Are you the same person? No. Even if you're the same skin tone, same hair, same eye color, are you the same person? No. It's simple. You're not. No one is. So that should be fairly self-evident. But we forget this in some ways, that difference exists at the very base level when we interact with each other. We are separate beings for each other. You'll have different backgrounds, different histories, different experiences, different interests, different everything. And that's before we even look at things like race, sexuality, disability, ethnicity, neurodiversity. We're all different. So, we're going to, for health and safety reasons, I am not going to throw a ball. Though I do have a ball from Rage Quit Game today, thank you very much. But what I'm going to ask you to do is imagine that you're in a group of people. Imagine it's your team, imagine it's your family, it doesn't really matter, but you're in a group of people and you are throwing a ball to each other. And imagine everyone else gets the ball thrown to them, but they skip you. I mean, okay, maybe they might throw it to you once or twice, but actually then they move on and they keep throwing it to each other and they don't throw it to you. How do you feel? Do you feel left out? Is it excluded? And this is just playing ball. It sucks. You notice, and you'll particularly notice if there are folks who are similar to you in some way who are consistently not getting the ball thrown to them. You start to pick up on those things, and you start to realize that there are people who will get the ball thrown to them more often, and you might get to a point where you say, "Why are you throwing the ball to me?" And they go, "Whoa, it's just a game. Chill out." And then they might throw you the ball, and then it feels a bit crap, because it feels like you've had to get emotional before someone will include you, and then invariably, they probably will stop throwing you the ball anyway. Our leads, our managers, directors, and senior leaders have a tremendous amount of influence over the team and studio culture. So what I'd like you to do next is think of someone whose influence has impacted you positively. You picture them in your mind. I hope you have someone. If you don't, I'm going to be really sad. But hopefully you've got someone in your mind who impacted you positively. Hopefully you've got a name, and that's good. Now I want you to think about someone whose influence has impacted you negatively. Don't yell out the name. I imagine that one comes much more quickly. Now, we've got these two names in your mind. Which one of these two people had more time for you as a person? Again, you don't have to answer that. I imagine, though, it's the one who impacted you positively. They probably had more time to say, "Hey, how are you?" They probably had more time to say, "Oh, what did you get up to this weekend?" Genuinely. "Oh, hey, how's that project coming on?" "Oh, how are the kids? How's the family? How's your dog?" "Oh, you said you were playing this game. How is it going?" You're probably going to feel that you've had someone who impacted you more positively if they invested more time in you. That's it. That's the audience participation. Like, you're safe now, promise. Oh. What a difference does difference make? I missed out on animation, never mind. But when teams feel more psychologically safe, they are more likely to learn, contribute, challenge, and feel included. So what we're talking about in this sort of area is when you make a mistake, if someone's got time to say, "Hey, I saw this mistake happen. How did that happen?" Because by and large, when we make mistakes, it's terrifying. We think that we're going to get fired. We think we're going to, everything's going to be awful. And when there's psychological safety involved, i.e. you know that if you make an honest mistake, someone will have time for you to talk through how it happened and support you in making sure it doesn't happen again, they're more likely to contribute, challenge, and feel included. And if you contribute and challenge, you're more likely to make better products. Businesses with highly diverse executive teams are likely to see a 25% higher than average profitability. These are the kind of stats that we see, like, go woke, go broke does not play out in actual data. And people who feel that their companies treat them well and their colleagues fairly, no matter what their demographics, are 9.8 times more likely to look forward to going to work and 6.3 times more likely to take pride in their work. So we see there are ways in which building a little bit more time into your teams, into your people, pays off, not just in terms of your day-to-day activity with each other, but also in money. And additionally, managers who showed inclusiveness were more likely to see a higher level of productivity and creativity and innovation from their teams than managers who didn't show inclusiveness. And there are tons of studies to back this up. There are tons and tons of studies all across different platforms, different groups, that show that these claims that we're seeing from angry folks online just is not true. Forbes does piece on this all the time, Harvard Business Review, Deloitte. You can find them with a quick Google search that very quickly debunks the noise that we get from folks online saying that inclusivity is destroying everything, etc. Okay, so what do I do? What do you do? So I have a holistic, multidisciplinary approach to policy, processes, people, benefits, marketing, recruitment, operations, charities, events, games content, and company strategy. My role sits in our, this is just in a sort of sumo perspective, but my role sits in the umbrella company at the top of Sumo Group, and I work with our various studios across 4 different geographic locations in the UK, India, Central Europe, and Canada. I work on various areas of support for our dev teams if they come to me, but again, I don't go in and say, remove that. I'll say, hey, I've read this script, or I've looked at your concept art, you might want to consider this. I've noticed this thing, this might enhance this might add some additional authenticity, this might add some context. It might be received this way by these players or these people, something to consider. Ultimately, they will do what they want. But it's not my mandate. I don't have the power to say, no, that is being removed. I don't have the money to then take from their teams to destroy the development. And this idea that is some kind of agenda to make games worse, it's just not true. So what do we do at Sumo? No place is perfect. No one has the magic, single bullet idea to fix everything because we're humans. Humans are messy. But I can talk about some of the things we do as a group to try and be a bit more inclusive overall. We have an employee resource group, PRISM, which I'm very proud of. It houses 4 main communities: Chromatic, our underrepresented ethnicities; Ultraviolet, women and marginalized genders; Iridian, which is our LGBTQ+, and Wavelength, which is our disability, wellbeing, and neurodiversity group. We have 380 members, or over 380 members at this point. Roughly 22% of Sumo Group are within this group in some shape or form. We have dedicated stream champions. So our champions are people at any level of the business. From day one, they can become representatives of their stream and get involved in various things like events planning, committee membership, general community-based work, which is included in their daily jobs. So they get 8 hours per month within their day jobs to work on this stuff. We also have our stream sponsors who sit at studio department director level, so they have direct senior support within the streams, and they tend to be people who represent those streams. We also have, they have a small financial contribution for the work they do as champions, skilling up opportunities, and dedicated stream activities. And we also have an executive sponsor who sits at C-suite level. So we continue to have a dialogue between people who are most impacted, people who are studio leaders, and the very top of the business. And we have monthly events. And twice yearly open Q&A sessions. We do a lot. We also work with external companies to enhance who comes into games. So we work with Limit Break, who are a UK-based industry mentoring service, Code Coven, who is an accelerator, Ahead Partnership, who work with schools, Women in Games, and Moving Ahead, which is a women's mentorship program for senior leaders. We run the Sumo Academy, which includes talent-based development program, creating new pathways into games industry and open doors to graduates looking for their first career move. We've recently launched Sumo Evolve, which is a new free career program aimed at helping experienced game developers learn vital leadership skills. And we work with charities a lot. So, What can you take away from this introduction to inclusive practices by centering the difference in your daily skill set? It's really simple. You don't have to be experts on inclusivity to make big differences in your studios. It's very simple. Build relationships. Build them genuinely. You balance the need for results with empathy and concern for the well-being of those around you. Be curious. Ask, hey, I heard you said that Ramadan's coming up. I know nothing about Ramadan. Tell me more about that. Demonstrate your self-awareness, so express appreciation for the work of others. Be willing to show your strength by apologizing if you get something wrong, if you make and show honest mistakes aren't the end of the world. Remind yourself who you're throwing the ball to and who you're not, because it sucks when you're not involved in the game. So we're going to finish on the statement we started with, which is introducing inclusive practices by centering the value of difference into your daily professional skill set is one of the most important things you can do for your career, your team, and the future of gamers as a whole. Yes, you can learn about marginalized groups and the different intricacies of how they are differently impacted in the workplace. But ultimately, it is just about showing interest in each other. How is your day? Tell me more about that. How are you feeling? I want to hear about that. That's it. Thank you. I believe we have time for questions, if someone's got questions. If you don't have questions, I'm going to assume we're all good, and we're going to fix everything. We fixed everything. Excellent. Nice. Well, thank you. Yeah.